الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Today's topic, does anybody know what it is before we get started? Tawhid. Okay. Anything else? I saw the flyer. It said something else. It looked bigger than Tawhid to me. Anybody remember what it was? Happiness and Tawhid. Okay. Alhamdulillah. What do you think that means? It's very difficult for me to give a lecture. I like to teach, which is a little different than lecture. So I'm going to try to get you involved a little bit. What do you think that means, happiness and Tawhid?
The only way it can be achieved.
That the only way that happiness can be achieved is through Tawhid. Okay. Anybody else?
The only way that Iman can be achieved is through Tawhid.
The only way that Iman can be achieved. Tahir, what does that have to do with happiness? What does Iman have to do with happiness?
Relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, correct belief,
everything. What I'm asking now, so you said correct belief, and what does that have to do with happiness? I mean, there are a lot of people that don't even believe in Allah, period. They don't even believe that there's a creator. And some of them will claim to be happy.
True happiness.
No, hold on. So you'll see them. They may even, how do you know somebody's happy? Somebody's like this. Do they look happy to you? Like I'm looking at some of the young guys here, man. They're like, man, my dad just walked in. They don't look too happy. So what is happy? What does that, how do you know somebody's happy? Yeah.
Have your feet firm inside the religion of Allah.
No, you can't see somebody's feet firm inside the religion of Allah. I'm saying if you look at somebody, what indication is there that they're happy? Yes.
The way they communicate with other people.
The way they communicate with other people. So, like what?
Like saying assalamu alaikum or just saying hi or like.
So somebody says hi, assalamu alaikum or something like that. You can tell that they're happy. Okay. MashaAllah. Anybody else?
They generally have like a jolliness about them.
So there's something about them feels jolly. Yes.
They're smiling and they have a calm aura.
They're smiling, they have a calm disposition, they look, okay, alhamdulillah. All right. All of those things are important for us to kind of look at because you may see somebody smiling, they're calm and everything like that, and they don't believe in Allah. Are they happy? It's an important question to really understand. Are they happy? And the reality is that, yes, they might be. It's a temporary happiness. And most of the time, it's so temporary that it's not worth mentioning. Meaning that a person may feel what they experience or may experience what they believe is happiness. And they may actually experience some level of joy. But the reality is that lasting happiness, both in this life and obviously in the next, lasting happiness is built upon Tawhid. What do we mean when we say Tawhid? And how does that manifest itself in turn? And why? Why is real happiness related to Tawhid and Tawhid alone? All right? So I'm going to ask you something, and hopefully this will help to start putting things into perspective. This person who doesn't believe in Allah, they're very happy. They're happily driving down the street. They got a phone call, their mother called them up. Oh, I just wanted to let you know that a check came in the mail for you for $500,000. Yeah, he's real happy, right? At least that's what you think. Okay. Everything seems to be going well. He's driving in this new car to his new job, and he just got a check for $500,000. And then he's going through that red light. Or he's going through a green light. Somebody else comes through a red light, T-boned. It's in a terrible accident, loses his leg. Is he going to be happy? No. Is the $500,000 going to get his leg back? No. Does he know how to interact with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or even put that into consideration? No. In fact, he's probably going to say, I'm a good person. I didn't deserve this. In fact, I wasn't even doing anything wrong. I was actually going through the green. I don't deserve this. Can that person be happy with the circumstances? No. Let's turn that around. And let's look at that same situation happening to a Muslim who firmly believes that their patience with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for them will be rewarded. That the difficulties that they suffer in this life will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life and the next. That through their patience with that difficulty, they may even learn how to be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree. And therefore, and then recognize that through that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them much better in the hereafter. Can a Muslim possibly be happy with that circumstance?
No.
Yes. You understand the difference? There's the possibility. It doesn't mean that a Muslim will. It really depends on how strong their faith is and how they process events. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about happiness in the Quran, and there's several different ways that happiness is addressed in the Quran, but the one that's easiest for us to digest, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, is in Surah Al-Sharh. Right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Have we not expanded for you, talking to who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Have we not expanded for you your chest? What does that mean, expanded the chest? It means it made him broad, like he was lifting weights, and mashallah, expanded his chest. He's
Open his heart.
open his heart. Like open heart surgery? What does that mean? No, it's important because we just say stuff sometimes as Muslims. Like we have our own lingo, and then a lot of times we haven't really translated that lingo even for ourselves. So we kind of say it, don't really know what it means. Yes?
Granting him knowledge.
Okay. But that sharh as-sadr, to open up the chest. Okay. I'm gonna give you the opposite of an open heart would be a what? Closed, tight. Now that part we actually understand because we kind of talk like that. In fact, certain slang, tight. You know, like he's mad or something, right? I don't know. That's New York slang. But anyway, when the heart, when your chest is tight, do you imagine that being something that feels good?
Discomfort.
That's discomforting, right? So the sharh as-sadr, that we not grant you comfort, we not give you happiness, right? It's another way to say that. So granted the Prophet ﷺ comfort, ease, soothing, tranquility in the heart. Alam nashrah laka sadrak. And we're not gonna go through the tafsir of this particular surah because I want to get to something that the kalam of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala on the subject of happiness and tawheed, so that we can kind of put some things into action, inshallah ta'ala. But somebody's got a phone up here recording it. And somebody's calling and okay, khair, inshallah, khair. That's yours?
No, it's not mine.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So, Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, have we not expanded for you your breast? So, something to understand here. Allah Azza wa Jal did not say, was your heart not expanded? He said, did we not do what? Expand your chest. Did we not give you happiness? One thing we have to understand is that just like our physical bodies are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, emotions are also created. They're part of Allah Azza wa Jall's creation. And if we want happiness, it has to come from the creator of happiness. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jalla said, Alam nashrah. Did we not open for you your chest? Meaning, did we not make you happy? Meaning, it is from us that you become happy. Alam nashrah laka sadrak wa wada'na anka wizrak. Sorry? Anybody know the surah? Alladhi anqadha dhahrak wa rafa'na laka dhikrak. Okay, so what do we have there? Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we made you happy. And Alam nashrah laka sadrak wa wada'na anka wizrak, and we have removed from you that burden. What does that mean?
The impurity that was in his heart.
Any sins that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had, that sins become a burden on a believer, and a believer always looks at his sins as weighing him down, right? And that to be free of that sin actually allows you to move freely, and this is part of that happiness. That which weighed down your back, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ, and we raised for you your mention. That is, that we gave you a good reputation. Again, that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of this is part of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's happiness. The fact that he actually has a good name. That's also important for us to realize that in pursuing happiness, that you have to avoid those things which would cause you to have a bad name, whether that's lying and cheating and stealing and so forth. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Inna ma'al usri yusra, with difficulty, there is ease. After difficulty, there's ease. Is that what Allah Azza wa Jalla said? With difficulty. With every difficulty, there's ease. And that's what we say in English when we talk about the silver lining. You ever heard of that? What does it mean, the silver lining?
Added benefit.
Sorry?
Extra benefit.
Not necessarily extra benefit. The silver lining is that when something is difficult, you have to look at it from a different perspective to allow you to see the positive in that thing that might have been difficult.
Find the good in it.
Find the good in it, right? So, for example, let's just say, a person was in a car accident. Terrible thing, and it wasn't their fault, right? As a result of that car accident, they went to the doctors. Otherwise, they weren't going to the doctors. And they had certain scans done that they normally wouldn't have had. And through that scan, they found something early detection. SubhanAllah. Now, there was all types of damage to the vehicle, so on and so forth. But through that, something good came out of it. That's called the silver line. With every difficulty, there is ease. Inna ma'al usri yusra. With that difficulty, there is even more ease. So with every difficulty, there's ease, and with that difficulty, there's even more ease. That is, that there's always going to be more positive in a situation than negative, than the difficulty. But you have to learn how to look for that. Now, again, I don't want to go off on too many tangents, but there's a field that's kind of new in psychology. I mean, within the last decade and a half or so, it's called positive psychology, the psychology of happiness. How somebody is happy. And what they claim, or some of them, is that you really only control about 40% of what makes you happy. 50% is genetic, meaning that comes from your parents. You don't have any control over that. I'm just saying what they say. 10% is your circumstances that you don't have any control over. It snows outside, it doesn't snow. You don't have any control over that. Or the weather and these type of things. And other circumstances that you don't control. So you control about 40%. And you know what all of that 40% goes back to? Your perspective. How you look at things. So if you know how to inna ma'al usri yusra, and you really know how to look for those silver linings, and you realize that with every difficulty that you go through, that there is more ease. If you learn that, then you will learn to be happy. Then says after that, what? فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ. So when you get freed up from your worldly responsibilities, fansab. Yani, basically, like we would say, go hard in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if your free time is spent otherwise, then what's going to happen is you're going to wander aimlessly, and nobody who does anything aimlessly is actually happy. That's just the reality. So we as human beings, we attach goals to everything that we do. Otherwise, you won't do it. You think about a guy who goes to a job that he hates, right? Why is he going to that job that he hates? What do you think? Because he needs the money. So the goal then has become the money. There are other people that work for far less than what they are worth. Why do you think they do that? Because their goal from that job is not actually just the money. That's not their ultimate objective. There's got to be something else tied to it. Either they feel like they're fulfilling a duty, they're getting something a lot more out of it than just the money. فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ, when you become free, when you get freed up, don't spend your time on the couch kicking your feet up, doing nothing, because that's not going to make you happy. It's really not. Now, we all as human beings, we need time to relax, to recover, and so on and so forth, right? But that's not what's going to make you happy. Fansab. Then spend your time in the devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. Which means what? What does that mean? I know you all memorize the surah. Even the young guys here. So what does it mean? وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. And to your Lord, وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. From raghba. No, not trust. Raghba means to desire something. Turn to him with your raghba. Turn to him with your desires and your devotion. Right. Because it is through turning to Allah alone in devotion, which is called what, by the way? What's a word for that? You worship Allah alone. It's called TAWHID. It is through TAWHID that we get what? Sharh al-sadr. That the heart becomes expanded. It's where it finds comfort. It's where it finds its happiness. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. Yeah, I don't know. You see how the surah kind of shows us how there's real happiness can only come through Tawheed. Through that actualization of seeking out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and attaching our hopes to Him alone. So we're going to talk about that a little bit from the speech of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, who in Zad al-Ma'ad, I'm going to go through just a little bit of this so that for the benefit. And this is not normally how I do things. However, I feel like the speech of Ibn al-Qayyim is so powerful and so on point that just by taking it step by step, that if we can digest this, inshallah ta'ala, we'll find it extremely beneficial. In Zad al-Ma'ad, and then we'll go back to Fawaid, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala says, فَأَعْظَمُ أَسْبَابِ شَرْحِ الصَّدْرِ التَّوْحِيد. The greatest reason, the greatest cause for finding happiness in the heart is at-tawheed. وعلى حسب كماله وقوته وزيادته يكون انشراح صدر صاحبه. And according to how much one perfects his tawheed and the strength of that tawheed and the increase in tawheed, according to that, one will find happiness. That is how much or how wide a person's breast will expand, which means how much more comfortable and happy they will be. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, فَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ فَهُوَ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ. What about the one whose heart Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened to Islam so that he walks in light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That is, his path in life is illuminated through his worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, a person will have darkness. And a person's light is according to the perfection of their tawheed. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He goes on to say, وَقَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ وَأَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يشرح صدره للإسلام ومن يريد أن يضله يجعل صدره ضيقا حرجا كأنما يصعد في السماء. Whoever Allah desires or wants to guide, He spreads open His heart to Islam. And whoever Allah Azza wa Jal wants to misguide, He makes his heart narrow and constricted as if he was going up into the sky. And in other words, the further you go up, the less oxygen you're able, the less air you're actually able to breathe in, right? And it becomes more difficult. That's why as you go up in higher altitudes, not to go off too far, but I don't know if you ever heard about like sports teams. The one place in America they hate to play. Denver. Why is that? Because it's the high altitudes, difficult to breathe. So they actually have to go early to get acclimated to the environment because of how high it is. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is mentioning here in the Quran that He makes his heart narrow and constricted as if he was climbing up in the sky. So anyway, Ibn al-Qayyim goes on and he mentions a number of things that talk about the importance of Tawheed. So he says, فَالْهُدَى وَالتَّوْحِيد مِنْ أَعْظَمِ أَسْبَابِ شَرْحِ الصَّدْرِ. So therefore, guidance and Tawheed are from the greatest of those causes that bring happiness to the heart. وَالشِّرْكُ وَالضَّلَالُ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ أَسْبَابِ ضِيقِ الصَّدْرِ. And associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shirk and dalal, being misguided, are from the greatest greatest causes of the heart being constricted, not finding happiness. All right? So, what we're going to do, inshallah, is read from the last part of a very important book from Ibn al-Qayyim. It's called Fawaid. Anybody ever heard of that book called Fawaid by Ibn al-Qayyim? What do you know about the book?
I have it.
You had it, mashallah. Okay. Like, anybody else heard of Fawaid? What does Fawaid mean, Nadir? Benefits. Okay. So with this book, the way that this book is written is that he's kind of like just things that come to his mind based off of the Quran most of the time, and sometimes from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then he is going to share those benefits with us and pen them down in no particular order. But this last part of the book, which is several pages, Ibn al-Qayyim talks about at-Tawheed, but not in the way that we're accustomed to. And a lot of us are accustomed to learning about Tawheed academically. So when we talk about Tawheed, we talk about categories of Tawheed and the proofs for each category and what that refutes and so on and so forth. Which is important. It's important to understand Tawheed conceptually. But living Tawheed is different. And so there's a difference between knowing about something and knowing something. Do we clear on that? So for example, knowing about how to fix a car is very different than, well, since we have some barbers here, knowing about, right, how to cut hair. Like, I know that that's not right. His hairline is crooked, is all over here, his fade is all messed up. Knowing about that is one thing. Knowing actually how to do it is a different thing. Being a practitioner is a different thing. It is my firm belief that many of us have only learned about Tawheed. And that many of us have not really become practitioners of Tawheed. So we know what we're supposed to do. We learned a lot about these things and categories, and we studied and we memorized this book. But did we really put that into practice? Application of it. And so this is what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala is going to talk about right now. And you'll see the connection with happiness as we go, inshallah ta'ala. Like, you're going to be patient with me, right? Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala says, fa'idah, benefit. Again, these are the last pages of the book. قول الله تعالى وإن من شيء إلا عندنا خزائنه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there is nothing except that its treasures are with us. Let us process that. Because this is actually Tawheed, by the way. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, there is nothing except that we own it. Its treasures are with us. When you and think about a treasure. What is a treasure? Like if you have a treasure chest, what does it look like? Yeah.
Golden and really shiny.
So it's shiny, but okay, maybe it's wood, but inside of it, there's all of this, valuable things, usually with what on it? With a lock. Right. So if you want to get to that treasure, in a halal way, by the way, then you need to be able to get to the one who owns it and who has the key to it. Who can open it? Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ, there's absolutely nothing إِلَّا عِنْدَنَا خَزَائِنُ, except that we, with us, are his treasures. Let us understand that.
All right, let me work on that.
What is it that you could possibly want? Talk to me. What do you want?
Jannah.
You want Jannah. He's going to get money. He's going to spend it for the pleasure of Allah. So you want wealth. Well, in whose hand is the wealth? It all belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want longer days. Who is it that controls the day and the night and the sun and the moon? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's nothing except that it belongs to Allah. And Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to know that. And so he tells us in the Quran, there's nothing except that the treasures of that is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Is that Tawheed? Yes. Why? Because you're singling out one. And Allah Azza wa Jalla has singled out himself. He is the only one. Alhamdulillah. You should leave it down there. Like, Ibn al-Qayyim says that this statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala متضمن لكنز من الكنوز, that this statement comprises a great treasure. Great treasure. وهو أن كل شيء لا يطلب إلا ممن عنده خزائن. And that is that everything that exists should only be requested from the one who has its treasures. You only request something from the one who has it. Otherwise,
It's a burden, and it's no benefit.
it's a burden. And I can't help but think about how this relates to what we talked about last week when we talked about matrimonial bliss. When you love your spouse for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes easy. When you love them for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is going to wear you out. It's going to exhaust you. And it's going to torture you. And you know why? Because the heart, when it is torn, it's tortured. And the heart gets torn when you're loving more than one thing, and those things are going in opposite directions. That's what it means when the heart is torn. You say, I'm torn between two things, because those things are not in harmony with each other. وَكُلُّ عَمَلٍ لَا يُرَادُ لِأَجْلِهِ فَهُوَ ضَائِعٌ وَبَاطِلٌ. And every action that is done or that is not done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is a waste of time and it is fruitless. It is a waste of time and it is void of benefit. باطل. وَكُلُّ قَلْبٍ لَا يَصَلْ إِلَيْهِ فَهُوَ شَقِيٌّ مَحْجُوبٌ عَنْ سَعَادَتِهِ وَفَلَاحِهِ. And every heart that does not connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is miserable, it is wretched, and it is veiled from happiness and success. It is cut off. There is a barrier between that heart and happiness. Which heart is that? The heart that is not attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, stay with this. You have to. This is like Ibn al-Qayyim subhanallah. He's saying, look, right now we're on the first floor. We need to get to the second floor. There's no jumping. Okay? We got to walk up each step. So understand the steps here. Step one is to recognize what? that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the treasures of everything, and to recognize that He is the ultimate goal. Clear? Okay. With Him is the treasures of everything. So when you seek for something, who do you seek from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And ultimately the goal is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so don't do things for other than Allah and His pleasure. Clear? Okay, because we gotta, this is one of those step-by-step processes. And so he says that every heart, therefore, that is not attached to Allah, it is going to be a miserable heart. It is going to be a barrier between that heart and between happiness and success. He says, فاجتمع ما يراد منه كله في قوله وإن من شيء إلا عندنا خزائنه واجتمع ما يراد له كله في قوله وأن إلى ربك المنتهى فليس وراءه سبحانه غاية تطلب وليس دونه غاية إليه المنتهى. He says, so basically everything that you would want is comprised in the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِندَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ. There's nothing except that with us as its treasures. And the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Him is the finality. It comprises everything that you would do something for. So there's nothing besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from whom you should request things, and nothing besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whom you should act for. Like he says, and under this understanding, he says, وَتَحْتَ هَذَا سِرٌ عَظِيمٌ مِنْ أَسْرَارِ التَّوْحِيدِ. And from under this we understand a secret from the secrets of Tawheed. وَهُوَ أَنَّ الْقَلْبَ لَا يَسْتَقِرُ وَلَا يَطْمَئِنُّ وَيَسْكُنُ إِلَّا بِالْوُصُولِ إِلَيْهِ. And that is that the heart will not find tranquility or stability or peace unless it is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Then he goes and he talks about some of those things that connect the person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or some of the theory behind that, if you will. So I'm going to skip over that, and I'm going to go to this next part. We are going to skip a step, huh? But not just one. You walk up like that. And we're going to get to this part right here, which is critical. He says, فَكَّرْتُ فِي هَذَا الْأَمْرِ. So I gave this a lot of thought. And subhanAllah, when Allah Azza wa Jal blesses you with a teacher who is a real thinker, who is really, you can tell that that person themselves has tasted the fruit that they're offering to you, and they're telling you this is the sweetest thing in the world. I've tried different things, but this one here is the sweetest. Then they're really offering you a shortcut where you can kind of now skip some of those stages and realize. So he says, فَكَّرْتُ فِي هَذَا الْأَمْرِ. I've given this thing a lot of thought. In other words, what? A lot of thought about how the heart connects to Allah. Because that's what we're looking for here, right? Again, we're not talking about theory. We're talking about really doing Tawheed. So this is not about Tawheed. This is Tawheed. We get it? And this is how he's saying, this is how we get to happiness. How do we get to that point where we're genuinely happy? He says, I gave this a lot of thought. فَإِذَا أَصْلُهُ أَن تَعْلَمَ أَنَّ النِّعَمَ كُلَّهَا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. He said that it all goes back to this asl, to this one foundation. And that is to know that every ni'mah is from Allah alone. Understand this. That every blessing, that every favor is from Allah alone. Ni'am al-ta'ati wa ni'am al-ladhat. Both the favors and the blessings of worship and the favor and the blessings of physical enjoyment, if you will. So he breaks down blessings into two big categories, if you will. One is the blessing of worship. The Prophet ﷺ, for example, said, what about salah? جُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ. That my enjoyment was placed in what? Salah. That's a blessing. That's a blessing. And the Prophet ﷺ, in another hadith, He said, as-salatu nur. He said that prayer is light, right? But understanding that hadith in its totality, what we get from that is that light in and of itself is also enjoyable, right? So the Prophet ﷺ enjoyed his prayer. The obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a ni'mah. And it's from Allah. It's not, as we'll come to understand, inshallah, it's not simply because you want to worship Allah, or you think you want to worship Allah, or you say right now, as you're sitting here, you know what, subhanAllah, yeah, I'm going to do better with my salat. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to pray in the last third of the night. It's not simply because it's from Allah, and it has to be given to you. وَنِعْمَ اللَّذَّاتِ, which is kind of what we already know, right? Those enjoyable physical experiences. You know, whether it's tasting something good, whether it's hearing something nice, whether it's enjoying your spouse. All of these are from the ni'am of the laddat, those enjoyable things. فَتَرْغَبُ إِلَيْهِ, and therefore, you must seek from Allah and يُلْهِمَكَ ذِكْرَهَا وَيُزِعَكَ شُكْرَهَا. You must seek from Allah that He inspire you to remember those blessings and to grant you the ability to show gratitude for those blessings. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about how does the heart get connected to Allah. The heart gets connected to Allah by recognizing His favors, which is everything. Which means that you really don't stop. Because your ability to think is from who? Your ability to remember Allah is from who? And the fact that you actually remembered Allah is from who? And the fact that you thanked Him is from Allah. And so to thank Him for giving you the ability to remember Him and thank Him is perpetual, right? So here, this is how the heart becomes connected to Allah. It's to recognize His favors, whether those favors are from the ta'at, from the obedience side, or whether it's from the physical enjoyment. قال تعالى وما بكم من نعمة فمن الله ثم إذا مسكم الضر فإليه تجأرون. There is not a ni'mah that you have except that it is from Allah. And then when some difficulty comes to you, you cry out. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking to us or reminding us of His favors subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَاذْكُرُوا آلَاءَ اللَّهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings so that you may prosper, so that you may get falah, so that you may attain success. In other words, if you don't remember Allah Azza wa Jal's ala or His favors, then you cannot have what? You can't have happiness or success. And remembering that those favors are from Allah alone is called TAWHID. This is TAWHID in practice. Not the academic TAWHID, but the actual practice of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, recognizing that those favors are from Him alone. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. And be thankful for Allah Azza wa Jalla's favors if in fact it is Him alone that you worship. طيب. وكما أن تلك النعم منه ومن مجرد فضله فذكرها وشكرها لا ينال إلا بتوفيقه. So just as these favors are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and from His bounty to you, and see, when the word fadl is used, it's used for something that you don't deserve. So, for example, if you work at a job, if you have a regular 9 to 5, and at the end of the week, your employer is supposed to give you $1,000, and they give you $1,000, is that min fadlihi? Is that from his blessing to you? No. That's what you deserve. If he gave you 1,500, then the 500 over would be min fadlihi. You understand? Here, every ni'mah that we get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is from his fadl. It's not because we deserve it. Everything that we get is from his fadl. It's beyond anything that we deserve. And therefore, remembering them and shukrahan, what? And showing gratitude for them is from his tawfiq. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving you and blessing you with tawfiq, with guidance. Therefore, it all goes back to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From his tawfiq, from his blessing. And so it is sought from him in him alone, which is tawheed. And therefore your happiness is directly connected to you singling him out as the one from whom you make requests and for the one whom you work. Okay. وَالذُّنُوبِ مِنْ خِذْلَانِهِ وَتَخَلِّيهِ عَنْ عَبْدِهِ. Now understand this. Sins are therefore from the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala khadalak. And we're going to use this term. He has forsaken you. What does forsake mean? What does that mean? We use these terms all the time. Yes. Abandon. Yes. Huh? Now, abandon is a good term. Abandon is a good term. To forsake someone means to basically leave them out in the cold. They were expecting you to come through for them. Why hast thou forsaken me, right? So, why did you leave me out in the cold? You called up your friend, you caught a flat tire and you didn't have an extra one, you didn't have a donut in your trunk. You call her, hey man, I need some help. You said, okay, all right, I'll be right there. He went back to sleep. He wasn't thinking about you. 3 hours later, what's going on? He did what? That's to forsake, right? Okay. Well, it's a different discussion as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forsake his abd. But know this, that it is only because that person has turned away from Allah, failed to recognize Allah's ni'mah, failed to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that ni'mah. So therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may leave that person to himself. Right? And one of the du'as that the Prophet ﷺ actually taught his daughter Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha was, Ya hayyu ya qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith aslih li sha'ni kullah wa la takilni ila nafsi tarfat ayn. And don't leave me to myself for the blink of an eye. The last part of the dua. And don't leave me to myself for the blink of an eye. And you don't want to be left to yourself. He says, وَإِن لَمْ يَكْشِفْ ذَلِكَ عَنْ عَبْدِهِ فَلَا سَبِيلَ لَهُ إِلَى كَشْفِهِ نَفْسِهِ. If Allah Azza wa Jalla does not lift that off of his servant, the fact that you can't see his blessing, and therefore do not thank him for his blessing, if Allah doesn't lift that off of you, there's no way for you to lift that off of yourself. فَإِذًا هُوَ مُضْطَرٌ إِلَى التَّضَرُّعِ وَالْإِبْتِهَالِ إِلَيْهِ أَنْ يَدْفَعَ عَنْهُ أَسْبَابَهَا حَتَّى لَا تَصْدُرْ مِنْهُ. And therefore he is in total need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in turning to him and begging him to push away anything that would cause him to be neglectful and heedless of those blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because wallahi ikhwan, and this is our reality, we oftentimes don't even recognize a ni'mah, not to mention thank it, because you can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his favors unless you recognize them. But oftentimes we don't recognize them until they are gone. Until they're gone. And just think about any health problems that you've ever had. The fact that you take for granted that you're not congested. You take for granted that you taste your food. Not just that you have food that's nutritious, but that you actually taste it and enjoy it. We don't remember that until when? Till you get a cold and now you don't taste anymore. You just say, subhanAllah, I can't wait till I can just taste again. Right? The fact that right now you don't have any oxygen, like no oxygen mask on until you need an operation or something, and then you're saying, subhanAllah, just the fact that I can breathe. It's a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with no apparatus. Right? So we're in constant need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us be aware of those blessings. وإذا وقعت بحكم المقادير ومقتضى البشرية فهو مضطر إلى التضرع والدعاء أن يدفع عنه موجباتها وعقوباتها. And likewise, if a person falls into sin, because that was which was decreed for him, ومقتضى البشرية, and because he's a human being at the end of the day and he's going to make mistakes, then he is in need of turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and calling upon him to push away the evil effects, the results of those sins. Which could be what? Which could be the hellfire and the hereafter. And it could be all types of balaya or difficulties that we face in this life due to those sins. In fact, as some of the salaf used to say, I recognize that I've sinned in the way that my animal behaves. SubhanAllah. And I'm trying to get this thing under control. My horse is going crazy. It's because I'm going crazy. It's because I haven't done what I was supposed to do in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being submissive to my creator. And now I can see that my animal is not being submissive to me. SubhanAllah. And so he recognizes that, right? So to what? So the first thing, we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to avoid sins. And we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to what? We need him to push away the effects of our sins. Do we see this? And what is every sin at the end of the day? Let us understand that. And how does that relate to the ni'mah? Every sin. Every sin is directly related to one of Allah's ni'mahs. You got it?
It's an act of ingratitude.
It's an act of ingratitude. In other words, you have misused one of Allah's ni'mahs. There's no way you can sin except that you have misused Allah's ni'mah. And if you misuse Allah's ni'mah, you may recognize it, but you haven't thanked Him. Do we see this? I want to make sure we're understanding this. So the asl of happiness is that your heart is connected to Allah. How do you get your heart to connect to Allah? Through recognizing and thanking His ni'mas, His blessings. That is that is a practical step. The practical step that has to be taken to do what? To connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you recognize His favors and that you thank Him for those favors. The opposite of that is what? Is to sin. So you either have forgotten His favors or you have misused that favor. And therefore you have to call upon Allah when that happens to do what? Keep sin away from you. Yani, keep your mind in remembrance of His favors. Or that once you recognize that you have sinned, that you're asking Allah to do what? To keep the consequences of those sins from harming you.
Turn left.
Or right. Nah. Shuf. So I'm going to stop at this point because I know my time is up. And there's so much more that can be said. But check this out. And this will help us to understand how we can really be happy through Tawheed. فلا ينفك العبد عن ضرورته إلى هذه الأصول الثلاثة. So a servant is never going to be free from needing these three foundations, these three fundamentals. Al-usul al-thalatha. Huh? Y'all know usul al-thalatha, right? Okay. It's a little different here. Ibn al-Qayyim says that every servant of Allah will always need these three usul, وَلَا فَلَاحَ لَهُ إِلَّا بِهَا. And he will never have success except with these three things. You ready? All right. Everybody who was asleep before, this is the part you have to memorize. Okay? And I'm going to ask you after Salat, inshallah, after Salat al-Asr. Number one is a shukr. Number two, talabul afiyah. Talab al-afiyah. So number one is shukr, which is what? Gratitude. Gratitude. Be thankful for everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with. Talabul afiyah is asking Allah for well-being. Asking Allah for well-being. That is, both physically, but here in this context, that you are not sinful. That He keeps you away from sin, because sin is the opposite of well-being. And the third thing, what tawbah and nasuha. Sincere repentance. You always need those three things. Number one is gratitude. Number two is asking Allah to keep you free of sin. But you will sin. You will forget. It's the nature of Bani Adam. And so you need the third thing, which is true repentance. And what does tawbah mean? To turn back. Okay. Right. Tawbah means to turn. Right? And so when a person sins, then it's as if they've turned their back on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turned towards whatever it is, whether it's their desires, shaitan, whatever it might be, turn towards that thing. So tawbah means that what? You turn back towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Truly wanting Allah azza wa jalla to forgive you and having that firm desire to stay in that direction towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The abd is in constant need of those three things. It is with those things. All of which are what? Aspects of tawheed. Because you're asking Allah for what? To make you be one who is grateful, who recognizes His favors. And this is why our Prophet ﷺ taught that dua to Mu'adh radiallahu ta'ala anhu to say at the end of every single salah. He said, Mu'adh, I love you. So don't leave off saying at the end of every salah, Allahumma inni ala dhikrika wa shukrik. Oh Allah, help me to remember you and to remember your favors, because there's nobody else that gives favors except for you. This is tawheed. Help me to remember you and to thank you. Wa shukrika wa husni ibadati. And to worship you properly. And part of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly, and again, a lot of times we don't think about this. Part of worshiping Him properly is seeking His forgiveness and turning to Him in repentance. Tawbah is ibadah. You don't do tawbah to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he taught Mu'adh this dua to say at the end of every salat, because we need Allah's aid to remember Him and to remember His favors. And it is through this, and this is an exercise that we need to be involved in. Really recognizing Allah's favors on us. If we begin to look at the world differently and understand how this all ties in, if we begin to not look at what you don't have, but look at what Allah has given you. That is how you become really content with Allah's favors, and you'll begin to recognize them even more, because you're training yourself to look for the good, not to look for what you don't have. And this is why our Prophet ﷺ used to advise his companions, "Unduru ila man asfala minkum." Look to those who are below you, who have less than you. And don't look to those who are above you. Because that's what's going to make you, what? Not be thankful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors. It is more likely that you will thank Him, who ajda and la tazdaru ni'matallahi alaykum. It is more likely that you will not belittle Allah's favors when you do what? When you look to those who are below you. It all ties back into shukr. This is how we will maintain real happiness, because we'll realize, man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me with so much. But if our eyes trained not to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors, we will never be happy, because you won't be content. And happiness is tied to being content, and it's tied to rida. It's tied to being pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us from the su'ada, to make us from those who are happy. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to allow us to be from amongst those who die upon Islam, and whom He puts in the hereafter with the righteous. Wallahu a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad. And apologize again for going over time. I know we need to call that day now, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanallah wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Astaghfiruka.